Most people think buying an online business is as simple as just finding a business, making an offer and handing over the cash, which is absolutely wrong. That's how amateurs buy businesses. And that's why most of them either lose their shirt or get stuck with buying a lemon that they just can't grow. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 powerful acquisition strategies that the smartest buyers, the ones building actual freedom and wealth, are using to buy better businesses safer and cheaper. And if you're thinking about buying an online business, this is really going to change the way that you think about the game. Hi, I'm Jared Krause. I'm from Buying Online Businesses, and we help people just like you buy profitable online businesses the smart way, skip the startup struggle part, and actually build real freedom a lot faster than the startup route. And to back this video up in a second, I'm going to share with you how much Facebook, how much Google and Amazon have actually spent on acquiring businesses. And there's some wild figures there, to say the least. But some of the ways they, myself and my clients, structure these business acquisitions as well is what I'm going to share with you too. Now, everybody wants the shiny, polished business that makes stacks of cash. But here's the trick. You can make absolutely insane money buying under optimized businesses. But you need to be aware of a couple of things. First, there's some key points. You need to look for businesses where the owner has been slightly lazy, a little bit tired, maybe distracted, or just doesn't know how to grow it. For example, their skill set have grown it to a certain stage, but they've sort of hit this glass ceiling and they've sort of plateaued. They're great businesses because if you can hire in a skill set, or you have the skill set yourself, which isn't absolutely necessary, but if you can hire in the right skill set because you're coming in from a different angle, fresh blood, you're not lazy, you're tired, and you want to grow the business, that can be a very good way to build upon a platform that is already sort of stable and is kind of under optimized. Now, there's some things that you need to look for to be able to detect these under optimized parts of the business. For example, is the business only using ads? Are they only running Meta ads, Facebook ads, Google ads, TikTok ads, and they don't really have an organic strategy to where people that can discover them through content organically with SEO? Maybe they've got like no email marketing or poor email marketing, underutilized email marketing. Maybe they have a large email list they just haven't really tapped into. Maybe they've got a poor user experience, or the shopping, the buyer journey just sucks. Maybe they've got terrible conversion rates on their ads. Maybe they've got no upsells, downsells, and add to carts or add to cart sequences in their email list. There's just a list of growth strategies you can use depending on the business you're looking at buying. Maybe you're looking at buying a membership, recurring revenue, or software business where they don't really have a good retention strategy, but they're great at marketing and executing that. They're leaking people out. These businesses that do have these types of downfalls, maybe there's some businesses that are going downwards slightly, right? I typically like people to avoid those businesses that are plummeting off a cliff. Some people don't mind that because they're the turnaround guys. The turnaround guys are the ones that have a lot more cash outside of the acquisition to input into the business and really have the time, effort, energy and dedication to reverse that trend. I don't typically tell people to go for that route. I typically like people to go and buy something that's more stable. But there are some businesses out there that are under optimized and they are cheaper, and you can double their profits or triple their profits and make some massive improvements with some basic tweaks. But that's one acquisition strategy, is buy something that's sort of under optimized. How under optimized you go, or all the way down to plummeting off a cliff, is completely up to you, and what level of cash and energy and effort you can put into the business to scale it. Pro tip here with buying one of these businesses that is under optimized as acquisition strategy number 1 is to create a simple 90-day growth plan. If you can see 3 to 5 easy wins or relatively easy wins right off the bat, that's a great buying opportunity, as long as you know you've got confidence in being able to execute that and that providing results. Also, don't feel bad for the seller when you're buying one of these businesses as well, because maybe they've got this business and you've got the energy and effort and the skills and the resources to turn it around, but they don't. You're actually in a position where you're helping them exit because they might feel stuck in the business, right? And you can go away and take that business and their clients and their customers to a next level. So it's a win-win really for everybody. Now, another word of warning is that typically this is an advanced strategy. Buying something that's under optimized or declining a fair bit, it is an advanced strategy, and the rewards are higher because the risk is higher, right? So this strategy is great for someone who's really hungry, like I've just reiterated this multiple times, to be able to turn this around and turn it into a massive win. Like I said, it's not for everyone. If you are wanting a cash cow with low maintenance, then it's worth looking for something else. with like stable revenue and stable traffic. And that's the beauty of business acquisitions. There's more than just one way to win a race. And I've given you pretty much two already. The next one is, most people think you need to just slap 100% of the cash down, and pay up front. Wrong again. This is a different type of way to acquire a business. Is smart buyers don't just negotiate the price, they negotiate terms. So how do you get away with acquiring a business with a different strategy and not paying for 100% down cash, right? Well, number one is you've got a thing called seller financing, where you can pay 60% of the business, maybe 70%, or up to 80% of the business up front, maybe up to 95% of the business up front, and then finance the rest over maybe a 12 to 24 month period. Sometimes you can finance it over a 3 or 5 year period, depending on how large the business is and the terms that you can generate with the seller. Another key point here is with this is you have earnouts. It's basically the same as buying something using seller financing, anywhere from 60 to 95% down for the business in cash. And then, you can earn the business back by paying off the rest of the business in maybe a 6 to 12 month period. And it's like seller financing, but without interest. And if you can negotiate that term with an earnout, typically it's really good because you're not paying interest. The downside to this is that instead of compared to seller financing with an earnout is you'll typically need to pay it off a lot faster than if somebody who's selling a business is going to do seller financing. The longer they leave the finance to be paid, with the higher the interest, the more money they're going to make for the sale, right? The bigger the exit is for them. There's a win-win strategy between these two, depending on what the business is, the multiple, the seller, and so many different factors. Another acquisition strategy here is a portion of cash for the business and then a performance-based bonus, right? Where you can sweeten the deal for the seller. Because what happens then is, say for example, you buy a $2 million business and say it's making $800K net profit a year. Maybe if you can get that to $1 million net profit a year, and in the first 6 months with the owner involvement's help, teaching you the business and helping you with growth strategies and whatnot, they're going to be tied to the business. It decreases your downside because they're tied to the business and they want the business to perform, and you want the business to perform, and you're going to pay them for that. For example, maybe you get to $800K a year to $1 million in profit a year, and you notice that you're trending that way because of the 6 months of help that you've got from the seller. Maybe you decide to pay them 50% of the growth, between 800 to $1 million. It's 100K. Maybe that's a really, really valuable, sweet performance-based opportunity for them. Okay. And then you can have downside opportunities as well, where you can protect yourself, where if the business doesn't perform a certain way over a certain period of time, then you pay less with the seller financing or the earnout or the performance-based note, which is really, really key for protecting yourself from potential downside. Pro tip here is that terms are really more important than price. You could get a $500,000 business for $300,000 over time if you know how to structure it creatively. If you're only negotiating on price, you're leaving serious money on the table and serious safety on the table as well. Another strategy is the platform play. So think bigger. One business is cool, but owning multiple complementary businesses, that's when you build an empire. It's called building a structured portfolio or building out a holding company where each business they don't have to, but they can leverage off each other. And this is an advance and strategy, and especially when you're using creative financing, this is the way that the biggest companies grow. It's through growth by acquisition. I help many clients do this with finance and without finance. And if you're looking at acquiring in the 7-figure range or more, reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. Email me. I might be able to help, or I can refer you to somebody who can. I've got resources for lawyers and finance brokers that can help you along the process too, that I'll just give to you. Now, some key points with this grow by acquisition strategy, this building upon a platform, is to buy businesses that stack on top of each other or run parallel to each other. For example, maybe they've got a similar audience, or the audience has some level of crossover, right? Maybe they've got some similar products or some crossover products. For example, maybe your first business is you buy an e-commerce business that is selling fishing rods. And then maybe you're like, all right, cool, I can go buy I've got X amount of cash, I can get financing up to this amount. Let's start to look for maybe, and say for example, it's a $2 million business you can acquire with financing for the second business. Maybe you go away and look at buying out an audience, a blog or a media channel that is teaching people how to be great anglers and fish. Because I'm not the biggest fisher person, but as an example, you could buy an educational platform where maybe the people that are looking at buying fishing rods, you can revert them to the educational platform, and then that educational platform, you can revert that audience to buying some of your fishing products, and you can cross-sell, and the cross potential is very, very valuable there. Another one is it doesn't need to just be about audience. It can be about resources. Where are you spending the most amount of resources in your business? Is it marketing? Is it within accounting? Is it within manufacturing? Maybe you buy the manufacturing company that produces those fishing rods. Maybe you purchase the marketing platform that is helping you grow the business, and then you've got a marketing platform that grows this business but other people's businesses as well. So there's so many, depends on how creative you can be, depends on how awesome structure can be for you. Now, when you're looking at buying these sorts of businesses, you want to look where you can instantly lower your costs or boost customer lifetime value by, running these cross-pollination strategies from audiences and products. Another way to think about it is locking in market share and purchasing out your competitors too. So removing your competitors to making it easier by buying them, merging them into yours, and owning market cap and having less competitors and you having more control over that market. It's called building a structured portfolio, like I mentioned before, and very, 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 very valuable. Now, let me give you the pro tip. When you're buying your second or third business, you massively de-risk your whole portfolio, and then you start to get this thing called the economy of scale happening. And this is how the largest companies do this to grow. Facebook, they bought Instagram. WhatsApp, they've done really, really well from buying both of those businesses. From a recent report on Leftronic, this is wild to think, but Meta, or Facebook, whatever you want to call them, has spent $23.6 billion on acquisitions since its inception. Amazon, whilst the exact figures aren't really disclosed, there are some estimations that they've spent over $40 billion acquiring businesses. Then you got Google, massive. They've been estimated to buy about 263 businesses, and each acquisition averaging to be about 1.24 billion each. So you do the math. Around 263 times the 1.24 million, how much have they spent? 1.24 billion, how much have they actually spent? Like I said, this is absolutely wild, and that's how the biggest companies are built. They do it through acquisitions. They acquire new markets, they acquire technology, they acquire resources and build their market cap. And this is what we do with six-figure brands, seven-figure brands, and eight-figure brands. So if you're interested, reach out. Now, you can see there's so many acquisition strategies, and whilst most people are getting in and playing checkers, when it comes to buying businesses, you're about to start playing chess, okay? So don't just buy any online business. Use these three strategies. Find under-optimized gems or a stable business to use as a platform to build upon. Number two, negotiate terms and be creative with your terms. And number three, think bigger. Think building out a holding company, buying a business that can run alongside other types of businesses that allow you to acquire another one, and so on and so forth. And that's how you skip the grind. That's how you buy smarter and build real wealth without taking crazy risks. So thanks for watching, guys. If you found this video very valuable, please consider subscribing. There's more to come. Also, if you thought this was valuable, you know what to do. Get on top of that like button. And if you need any help, reach out. I'm here for you.